Thank you.
Here's mine. I didn't eat today.
Aw.
It's a bunny.
Start. Hello, we mean it. Right now.
I think I didn't write some bunny emoji.
Thank you for attending the meeting tonight. We have established a quorum tonight, and I have invited Dr. Sheila Pelham to come do the Pledge of Allegiance. I think he's reluctantly agreed, but he's going to do it.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Dr. Pelham. We will start with 30 seconds in my district, and we'll start with Ms. Pierce.
Yes, so I have several things. Tina Atkinson is the art teacher at Percy Priest Elementary, and she was recently named the 2018 Tennessee Art Educator of the Year. So we want to congratulate her and thank her for all the hard work she does with our kids. And then also, many of you may have already seen it, but we have a kindergartner at Waverly Belmont who has become a viral sensation with his weather report. So I hope that you will go, just even Google that. It's Caden Courts. And then also at Hillsborough High School, a junior, Kaylee Williams, created a commercial last fall for the credit union, and she recently won 3rd place in the state out of all submissions from all types of schools. So congratulations to her.
I don't have anything.
Ms. Barron.
Thank you. At Goodlettsville Middle School, 267 students showed growth in English language arts and math, and they celebrated with a pizza party. And the 7th and 8th grade band students there at Goodlettsville Middle competed in a concert performance assessment at White House Heritage High School. They performed 2 rehearsed pieces and 1 piece they sight read. The next festival will be in May. Thank you.
Ms. Fogg.
This past weekend, I took a carload of middle schoolers, as many as I could fit in my car, which was 6, to the Hillwood High School production of Peter and the Starcatcher. And it was a really funny and creative play, and just wanted to thank the teachers and the staff members that make this possible every year to have these great productions at Hillwood, and encourage people to come out. Thanks.
I just have a couple of things. I just want to thank Dr. Narcisse and Dr. Joseph for coming to the McGavick Coalition breakfast last Thursday. We had a former student who was the keynote speaker. Jonathan Long is a former McGavick band student and former student, and he now is the keyboardist for Lady Antebellum. And he and Dr. Jones did a really good job of highlighting the importance of arts and music education in our schools. So that was really impressive. I haven't seen Jonathan in a long time, and I was surprised I remembered him, what he looked like. And I wanted to also thank the Pencil Foundation for honoring me as one of their honorary chairs for their Little Night of Music event that was held earlier this month. And so it was truly humbling and an honor to be recognized by them. And I also wanted to say I attended the National Walkout Day at McGavick High School, and that was one of the best programs that I saw, events that I saw that day. They were very respectful. They spoke with a lot of passion. They spoke they articulated their passions very well. So I really congratulate those students for doing that. And of course, it comes down. It's a leadership thing in the school. So Mr. Wall does a wonderful job in leading those students and having that respectful event that day. We will move on to governance issues. Our organization, the consent agenda, Ms. Spearing.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The consent agenda reads as follows. 1A, recommended award of contract for professional services, district-wide geotechnical investigation and construction materials testing, Beaver Engineering, Inc. B, recommended award of contract for professional services, district-wide geotechnical investigation and construction materials testing, Professional Service Industries, Inc. C, recommended award of contract for professional services, district-wide geotechnical investigation and construction materials testing, S&ME, Inc. D, recommended award of contract for professional services, district-wide testing and balancing services, Thermal Balance, Inc. E, recommended approval of supplement number 2 for Tusculum Elementary School additions, Binkley Garcia Architecture, LLC. F, awarding of purchases and contracts, 1, Advanced Mechanical Contractors, Inc., 2, Casio Interstate Music, Inc., 3, Demand Mechanical, 4, Matthew Walker Comprehensive Health Center, Inc., 5, Washington Music, Inc., G, recommended approval textbook adoptions for science, PE, health and wellness, visual arts, and performing arts. I, recommended approval of textbook adoptions for physics, visual arts 2, and science. Madam Chair, I move to approve the consent agenda as read.
Can I get a, okay, it's been motioned and seconded. We can use our iPads to vote. Okay, let's try it again. Okay, the consent agenda passed unanimously. We'll move on to the resolution for school safety and gun violence. Ms. Frogan, Ms. Hunter?
So at our last board meeting, Ms. Hunter and I each separately proposed the same school safety resolution. And so we worked together to come up with this resolution that I will read tonight. I am reading it only because Ms. Hunter is a little under the weather. So the resolution is called a Resolution on School Safety and Gun Violence. Whereas the powers and duties of the Board of Education of the Metropolitan Nashville Public Schools allow for the definition of the policies and positions and acts in furtherance of those policies, except where the organization is prohibited from doing so by law or other governing documents. Whereas there is a need for the nation's major city school systems to express their positions on school safety matters that affect its students and the children residing in its cities. Whereas thousands of our students have publicly expressed concern for their safety and well-being and have indicated that policymakers should act immediately to protect them in school and beyond. Whereas the leaders of the nation's major city public school systems respect the concerns of their students and support the growing civic and social participation of high school students that was inspired by recent events. Whereas since the school shooting in Columbine in 1999, there have been numerous other school shootings, including those in Red Lake, Minnesota, Lancaster, Pennsylvania, Blacksburg, Virginia, Chardon, Ohio, Cleveland, Ohio, Sandy Hook, Connecticut, Broward County, Florida, and many others that have taken scores of young lives. Whereas too many of our young people are shot and killed on the streets of our major cities almost every day. Whereas Americans are 25 times more likely to be killed with a gun than people in other developed countries. Whereas Americans make up about 4.4% of the world's population, but own some 42% of the world's guns. Whereas assault weapons have no place in society and other types of guns are too easily obtained. Whereas teachers are not trained law enforcement officers and should not be asked or incentivized to keep weapons accessible in their classrooms. Whereas there is no reason based on any viable research to suggest that adding guns into a school setting or arming teachers would prevent these acts of violence. Whereas schools across the country need considerable additional resources to plan for the possibility of such acts of violence, coordinate with law enforcement, and secure their buildings from intruders. Whereas many schools lack the mental health counselors, psychologists, and social workers they need to identify and work with students showing warning signs for depression and violence. Whereas the multiple school shootings that the nation has witnessed over the years have caused complex causes requiring multiple solutions.
What? Did I? That one. Whereas this one.
Okay, I've skipped one. Let me go back. Whereas the nation's data collection on gun violence and gun ownership is inadequate to monitor, understand, or prevent these events from happening. Now, be it therefore resolved that the Board of Education of the Metropolitan Nashville Public Schools stands with the students of Broward County Public Schools in the nation in demanding effective and comprehensive action from the federal government to protect school children. Now be it further resolved that the Board of Education of the Metropolitan Nashville Public Schools calls on the Congress of the United States to ban the manufacture, sale, purchase, possession, and use of assault weapons and large-capacity ammunition cartridges, except those needed by the military and law enforcement. Now be it further resolved that the Board of Education of the Metropolitan Nashville Public Schools calls on the Congress of the United States to require and strengthen universal background checks to possess any type of firearm. Now be it further resolved that the Board of Education of the Metropolitan Nashville Public Schools calls on the President of the United States to charge all agencies of the federal government with the task of reducing the number of gun-related injuries and deaths in America. Now be it further resolved that the Board of Education of the Metropolitan Nashville Public Schools is opposed to the arming of teachers to protect schools and children. Now be it further resolved that the Board of Education of the Metropolitan Nashville Public Schools calls on the Congress of the United States to extend the perimeter of gun-free school zones. Now be it further resolved that the Board of Education of the Metropolitan Nashville Public Schools calls on the Congress of the United States to appropriate adequate new funds to allow school districts across the nation to plan and coordinate school security efforts with law enforcement officials and make other building alterations that may be necessary to protect students, teachers, and staff.
Can I make a motion?
Oh, I move that we adopt the resolution as read.
Second.
Thank you. Let's use our iPads to vote, please.
How can I get back? Is it right here? Don't ban it right there. Okay, thank you.
The motion passes as read and it's unanimous. Thank you, Ms. Vogue and Ms. Hunter, for bringing this resolution to us. Appreciate that. Before we move on to our reports, I just want to remind the people here in attendance that if you are here to speak at the public hearing after the school board meeting, please make sure that you get a number from Mr. Mark North over here, and you will have 2 minutes to speak. And when we line up, we'll line up in groups of 10 according to what your numbers are. Please state your comments in a polite and reasonable tone. All of us can hear, so there's no reason for you to raise your voice because we're perfect hearing. So if you will remember that for when we have our public hearing. Thank you. Dr. Joseph.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Each quarter, we bring to you a strategic plan update focusing on one of our 4 goals. Tonight, we're going to focus on our people. Deborah Story, the Chief of Human Resources, will lead us through a discussion on the progress we're making with organizational development and effectiveness. I will turn it over to Ms. Story.
Thank you, Dr. Joseph. And also want to thank the board for giving us the opportunity, or giving me the opportunity. Yeah, no, that's not it. Wonderful. Okay, thank you very much. And this is the Our People strategy. Just as a reminder, this is our strategic framework, our goals for the district, our students, which was covered by Dr. Narcisse last December, our organization, our community, and today I want to cover our people. Under our people, under these 4 pillars, we have 7 strategies, or should I say 7 priorities. 3 under of our students, 1 under our people, 2 under the organization, and 1 under the community. Today, I'm going to focus on priority 4, organizational development and effectiveness. Under priority number 4, we have 3 strategies. The first one is to create a positive work and physical environment where employees demonstrate professionalism and feel valued and respected in every school and every office. Also, to build capacity through the implementation of a professional learning program that provides training, coaching, mentoring, and performance management. And the third strategy is to optimize the Human Resources Department's ability to recruit, hire, develop, evaluate, and retain high-quality, diverse employees at all levels. Under those 3 strategies, we have 4 major initiatives. Recruitment and retention. We believe that if we have a high morale and employees are satisfied and engaged, that we will have greater success in recruiting and retaining high-quality teachers and staff. We will use survey data to predict, or should I say, to get a perception as to whether or not our practices are working. Under norms and accountability and culture, we want to establish norms and increase the accountability and improve the culture in our organization. We feel that if we have a positive culture, that we will also have an impact on our employees, and we would decrease the number of complaints that we receive. Under professional growth and development, what we like to do is have more of our educators and principals receive a level 4 or 5 on their team evaluation. And under leadership development, this relates to our principal residency program, where we will provide training for individuals who want to become principals, and what we'll do is we'll track those individuals to ensure that they are more effective and that they're staying longer than those who are not necessarily who have not necessarily gone through the program. This is our dashboard, and a dashboard has been created for every one of the 4 focus areas, the 4 goals. We have 21 key implementation steps in human resources. And as you can see, 14 of those are on track. 17 are running behind schedule. And the reason that they're behind schedule primarily is because we have a vacancy in the OD area, because several of these areas fall under OD, or we don't have enough staff to be able to implement them at this time. So I'm giving you just an overview. I'm only going to show you 8 of the 21. And so I tried to give you a sense for the types of things that we're doing in human resources to really make a difference. For expanded recruiting strategies, we implemented, you all know, we implemented a signing bonus this school year, and so far we've hired 67 teachers in our hard-to-fill areas. We also have gotten an early start on our recruiting for next school year. Typically that happens in the spring, this time of year, but we actually started in November of 17. And so far we have 167 early agreements, and as of yesterday, we have 52 have actually signed. These are teaching candidates, and we expect that we'll have more very shortly. Albeit that we have a small recruiting team right now, they have been working very, very hard. They have been out traveling within the state and outside of the state to try to find the best talent possible to teach our students next year. Also, one of the things that I would like to share with you is that we are focusing more on growing our own. And so we are taking advantage of a law that allows schools to certify their own teacher via an alternative certification program. What we're going to do, we've put together the application. It should be submitted next month. It's going to take about 30 to 60 days for the Department of Education to approve that application. We are hoping that it will be improved in time for us to implement this program for the next school year. Our focus is going to be our parapros, providing training to our parapros so they could become licensed teachers. This would be done at a deep discount, where today if they were to go to one of our local colleges, they can pay anywhere from $15,000 to $30-something thousand to get the necessary coursework to become a teacher. We're looking at perhaps this being just a $5,000 expense to them. Okay. We also have expanded our career fairs. They're bigger. We're getting more involvement with our university partners. We're also doing speed interviewing, where principals and hiring managers can interview candidates on the spot and make offers. That's new to the district this school year. We're also, I just said that, making offers on the spot, okay? Continuous improvement. We want to have across the board a more robust interviewing and screening process. Right now, we can only do that for a few areas. We're doing it for our parapros, and we're using a temporary employee to do the screening for our parapros. We're also doing this for some of our central office positions, as well as for timekeepers. And what I mean by this, today, most of our hiring managers, they have access to AppleTrack, all the people who've applied for positions. Depending on the position, that could be 100 applications that they have to go through to determine whether or not there's someone there that they want to interview. What we are proposing to do, if we had sufficient staff, HR would actually go through all those applications and only provide the hiring manager with those who meet the minimum qualifications, which was saying time and energy on the time of the hiring manager. And we'd make sure that they have the proper licenses that they need, because just be honest, we've been in situations where a person was recommended for hire. When the talent acquisition partner got involved, they realized the person didn't meet the minimum qualifications. And that's not the type of reputation we want to have as a district, where people are being recommended for hire and they don't meet the qualifications. The HR talent acquisition partners would qualify people for an interview. We also are partnering with Alignment Nashville, and we're really excited about this partnership. There is a new A-team that's been established for teacher recruitment and retention. I chair that committee, or should I say A-team, along with Laura Moore, and I think there she is, with Laura Moore. From the mayor's office, we also have Alignment Nashville staff, other MNPS leaders, and community partners on that committee. We meet monthly. And three of the focus areas for our group are affordable housing for teachers, and that's being led by the affordable housing area of the mayor's office, supporting teachers with resources. And we plan to have conduct a survey or perhaps some focus groups to find out what is it that the teachers feel like they need support with, so we could be more targeted in soliciting partners in the community to provide that support to them. We're also in the process of developing a website just for teachers to help us recruit teachers from other states, to help us to educate people who are new to Nashville on the Nashville community and how great of a place MNPS is to work. As far as culture leaders, we're looking at providing at least 4 school principals the opportunity to have a business leader coach. And that business leader coach will be trained in Arbinger and will provide them some guidance on how to create a great culture in their school. So those are some of the things we're doing from a recruitment and retention standpoint. We're also under norms, accountability, and culture. We have established completed a draft code of conduct. And that code of conduct is based on research, and it also keeps in mind our mission and our vision and the Arbinger standards. We will be organizing a committee to review and provide impact, or should I say input, on that code of conduct. And we're going to get representation from across the district, certificated, non-certificated, or should I say certified staff from various areas, from professional to juniors. We just want to make sure we have touched all areas of the organization for input on what this code of conduct should be. Once we get that approved, we're looking to implement it next school year and provide some training around professional standards. Wellness and health and wellness, we're really excited about this. Our wellness center has gone gangbusters. I mean, we had to open it up on Saturdays. And we're right now into the second month of Saturday hours. We're averaging about 48 members every Saturday coming to work out and use the workout center. We had 23,000 clinic visits last year. 23,000. We're going to be adding more services, or say additional services, additional chiropractor, psychiatric nurse practitioner, physical therapist, and we also have a demand for custom orthotics. I mean, just keep in mind that our teachers are on their feet all day. And so I'm sure this will be a very popular service that we can provide to them. Assessment and feedback, building the capacity of the Human Resources Department to be more efficient and productive. We are doing some things on our own without at no cost. We're using our own staff to come up with our processes and even training videos for our team. But we're also partnering with the Nashville Public Education Foundation, and they're going to be assisting us in creating some best practices within HR. Okay. On the professional development front, we have adopted the Leaning Forward Professional Development Standards Model, and we're also have developed some standard guidelines for the delivery of PD within the district. Right now, PD is happening all types of ways, and if we have some standards, having standards would really be a great thing for our organization. Okay, and this area falls under our organizational development department. And then lastly, under leadership development, our principal residency program. What we're trying to do is create a strong bench of principals for the future. Our first cohort has 20 participants in it. 4 of them have already been placed in interim principal positions. They have a support system by way of a professional development team, and that team consists of their building principal, a mentor principal, their EDSSI, as well as a central office administrator. And we will be measuring the effectiveness and the retention of those individuals who've gone through this residency program we're going to compare them to people who had not, or principals who had not gone through the program, because what we expect to see is more effective principal and longevity. Mm-hmm. Questions?
I don't have any questions, but I do think that it's a wonderful opportunity for some of our paraprofessionals to be able to move forward. Every now and then we have some that can turn that light bulb on for students and make them move forward. So I applaud that effort.
Well, thank you. And I've heard from a number of our parapros, they can't afford to go back to school.
Right.
They really want to be teachers, but they can't afford to. And this would be a much more affordable way for us to help them help themselves. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thanks for the presentation. How do we evaluate the increase in the positive work environment? I think we have baseline data now, is that right?
Yes, we'll be using right now, we were hoping in this budget we would use the Gallup survey, but we couldn't afford that. So we're going to be using the Panorama data and any other survey data we can find that's been done in the district.
So when will that be administered?
The Panorama, it's already started. Matter of fact, I believe there's one in the fall for teachers and students, and then there will be one, I think, in the next week or so. And Paul, do you, in the next week? Oh, it's on the way right now. The window's open for the survey right now.
So when can we anticipate hearing the results of that survey?
Those?
April, okay.
Okay, in the month of April.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
And my second question is, are principals able to hire right now? They are able to. I know their budgets have not been approved, I
They're
suspect.
going through the budget process right now, and if I'm not mistaken, if they have, as long as they're not asking for more, then I believe they can hire an existing staff, if they have existing openings.
So the 167 early agreements that you have and the 52 that have signed, are they at central office or are they in the schools?
Oh, these are people who don't work here.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
They don't
These
work.
are people that the recruiting staff has gone out to recruit.
Right, but they're going to work here, right?
They're going to work here in our
We have recruited them
schools.
to work here.
Yes.
Okay, here's my question.
Sure.
Are they going to be working at central office or will they be working in the schools?
They're teachers.
Right. Where will they be working?
Oh, in schools.
the schools.
In schools,
But-
yes.
But the budgets haven't been approved, and I've understood that principals aren't able to hire, so I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah, these are for next year.
Right. It's for next year.
Right.
And it's March, so we're hiring for next year. But the budgets haven't been approved, so I'm trying to understand.
If I can explain the early offer, when we make an early agreement to a graduating teacher, we can't tell them where they're going to work.
Okay.
Some of them hold out until we can tell them where they're going to work. And we typically can't tell them until we've got all the transfers completed, individuals who want to leave their school and go to another one. Once all that's done, then we can tell them what positions are available and where they could possibly work.
So we've got 52 people that have already signed that know they will be working maybe perhaps in elementary or middle school. Do they have that much information about
Because of what their
assignments?
license, if they're only licensed to elementary, we can guarantee them we're going to put them in an elementary school, but we can't tell them what school,
Yes.
which school.
We don't offer signing bonuses at this point, right? We offer the
No.
bonuses at, what, September?
Well,
October?
last year we did it a week or two after the beginning of school to try to fill those last openings that we had.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Deborah. How many vacancies do you anticipate, or
Well-
retiring people leaving at the end of the year, positions that you need to fill?
A couple of weeks ago, maybe a week and a half ago, we did a count, and at that time we were at 300 plus openings, but that's early. Because what happened last year, the closer we got to the end of the school year, we got more and more resignations. So I'm anticipating that number will go up, but as today is 300 plus.
And so you have 52 who have signed, and then What was the 167?
167 total.
Total, okay. And so what are those hard-to-fill areas? Are those still like math and science?
Math, science, exceptional ed, English language learner, and foreign language.
And in addition to the paraprofessionals who might be able to seek an alternative license, are there efforts to get college graduates who are math majors or the science majors, those kind of things? Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, that's also an option. Today, we're partnering with an organization called EdForce, and they're assisting us today in helping us to get people who are non-traditional teaching candidates to get licensed, and they have become embedded teachers in our district. So yeah, we're gonna do all we can to ensure that we have no or very minimal openings at the beginning of this next school year.
You have a really busy next few months.
Yes.
Ms. Dury, can you talk a little bit about why it's so important to have those 4 recruiters that we have in the budget?
Yes, I'll be happy to. Today, we have basically 2 recruiters who recruit for the entire schools. One does all the elementary schools, as well as she is our diversity recruiter. And if you recall, we have the most elementary schools than any of the other tiers. And then we have another recruiter who does all the recruiting for high school and middle school. There's only so much that they could do and be effective. We do have a temporary employee right now, and we just felt we had to do something for our parapros. So I brought on a temporary employee who's only focusing on recruiting parapros. We would like for that to be a regular position instead of a temporary job. We really like to be able to have 2 recruiters handling elementary, because we have so many elementary schools. And then we like to break out high school and middle school and have a recruiter for high school and a recruiter for middle school.
Anybody else? Well, I want to piggyback on my colleague, Dr. Brennan, about the parapros and the recommendations for them. I've been in a lot of classrooms and witnessed them myself, probably not as many as Dr. Brennan, but I've been in several, and they do an amazing job. So to be able to offer them, I mean, we get to keep them, and we get to, offer them an education for, little, compared to what they would have to pay otherwise. So I really commend that part. I really am excited about that.
Thank you. And we also, that was 3 recruiters, if I could just mention the other. We need to do a better job of developing relationships with our university partners, because the schools that have the best relationships get the best candidates. And we just have not been able to do that. We need to know the professors, we need to know the kids early on in their college career, so we can get the best of the lot. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Story. Appreciate that. Moving on to...
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Tonight, we're going to receive an update on our recent assessments. The results show that our students are improving at a rate higher than the national average, and that's something to be proud of. And we're going to have Dr. Paul Changas talk to us a little bit about measures of academic progress in reading. But this data is a good indication that the work that we're doing is on the right track. And I really do want to thank our teachers and our principals and our paraeducators and our parents. Everybody has been working hard this year as we've declared war on illiteracy. And it's nice to see that hard work is actually beginning to pay off. But for more details, I'll turn it over to the man, the legend, Dr. Paul Changas.
Thank you, Dr. Joseph, for that introduction. I'll say that I've spoken in front of the board many times over the years with regard to test data, and some opportunities are more pleasurable than others. And tonight we have some good news here. This was the 3rd administration of the MAP assessment this school year. We started the administration of reading the previous school year, so this was the 5th time we had district-wide data for reading. And jumping into the highlights, as Dr. Joseph indicated, our academic growth did exceed the national average. One of the nice features of the MAP assessment is that it provides us national normative data for both achievement and for growth, so that we can look at the progress our students are making over a period of time. And
so, Dr. James, do you think we should get a hand clap for that, or I don't know? Just wasn't sure.
Okay. So we exceeded the national average in both reading and mathematics in terms of growth. Our achievement scores, this is the one-time measures of achievement, how we compare to the nation, improved by 3 national percentile points in reading and 4 in math over this period of time. And we saw the highest results yet that we've seen in these 5 administrations of reading and 3 administrations of math in terms of our relative position to the nation. And in fact, we have a couple of grade levels that actually exceeded the national average for the first time. And the majority of our students are meeting or exceeding projections that are based on those national norms. We set targets for each student after the first administration in August for growth on the scale that's called the RIT scale from the MAP assessment. And we had 56% of our students exceed or meet that target in reading, and almost 60%, 59.4% in mathematics. And so it's good news all around. And as we'll see, these results are not just isolated to a particular quadrant or particular grade level. Generally, we're seeing improvement in most areas, and including most subgroups. So as usual, I throw a lot of numbers at you, but the important thing is to, as I have color-coded the data here, the reading assessment is on the left, and what you see are the national percentile scores. These are achievement measures over the 5 administrations of MAP going back to last year. And in the far right column of the reading data is the most recent results. And if we saw improvement in our national ranking from August, the first administration, to February, those are shown in green. And you'll see that except for 5th grade, which is has held its own at the 39th percentile, all other grade levels have moved up. And the results across grade levels 2 through 8 went from a 41 to a 44, with 50 being the national average for achievement. On the right, we have the mathematics results for all 3 administrations district-wide of math. This was the first year we administered math. And we see that we're in the green in all but 5th grade. And across grade levels, we went up 4 points, from 33 to 37. Our reading scores are actually closer to the national average than we see in mathematics. But if you look at the 8th grade in reading, we had the 52nd percentile, and the 2nd grade in mathematics, the 55th percentile. This is the first time we've exceeded the national average at a grade level. So our typical student at those grade levels has exceeded the national average. You're probably familiar with these bar charts where we break up our students into what are called quintiles. The red line indicates that nationally 20% of our students would be in each of these categories. From left to right, we see the lowest to the highest achieving students. So in what we call quintile 1, those are the students that are below the 20th percentile. And we still have more than the national average in that quintile, but you'll see that we had positive movement. We reduced that number by almost 3 percentage points from August to the February administration. And we see that we've increased on the upper end, the top quintile, from 15% to 16.2%. So the gold bars are the first administration of the year, the blue bars are the most recent. And what we want to see over time is movement from left to right in terms of those trends. So that's the reading data. In mathematics, we see similar movement from left to right. We reduce the percent of students in the bottom quintile by about 3.5 percentage points. We see about a 2.5 percentage point increase in the top quintile and another 1.2% increase in the 4th quintile. And as a reminder, we've set key performance indicators or KPIs for schools to get more students over time to the 4th and 5th quintile. Those are the students who have the best chance of reaching these high standards on 10 Ready assessment, the on-track and mastered students. And we saw last year high correlations between 10 Ready and MAP assessment. So it's encouraging to see more students moving in that direction. Hopefully, we will see those trends continue with 10 Ready. We've been looking at achievement data. Now we're looking at the growth data from the MAP assessment by grade level. And again, I've color-coded that the third column has what we call the median growth national percentile. And the way you would read this, this number represents the percentage of students nationally that scored below our typical student. So the national average would be a 50. That's where we made greater growth than 50% of students nationally. What you see is anything in green is above that national average. Again, grade 5 is one grade level where we didn't exceed the national average. But we, overall, across grades, our typical student exceeded 54% of students nationally. And you see a 60 at grade 8. That means that our average child outscored 60% of students. The next column has what we call our average RIT growth. The RIT scale allows us to look at trends over time and can be tied back to specific standards and skills that students have mastered. Growth tends to be higher in the lower grades. It's like a learning curve phenomenon that growth tends to be greater as we're younger. What you see in that column is the average growth of our students at each grade level. The column to the right of that is the average projected growth. That would be the national average in terms of growth. And anything in green in the average RIT growth column is exceeding that national average growth. And again, everything but grade 5 is exceeding. And finally, the last column is what percentage of our students at each grade level met or exceeded those projections, again, based on the national average. And you'll see green across the board. At all grade levels, over half of our students did exceed the national average. And again, across grade levels, 56%. Moving on to mathematics, we see similar types of data. Here, we're slightly below, just 1 point below the national average at grade 4 in terms of growth, but a little bit further below at grade 5. And I'll just say historically, grade 5 has been a challenge in terms of our value-added growth. We know that's a transition from elementary to middle school, but that's the one grade level we continue to see as a challenge. But again, our overall growth across grades, we're at the 58th percentile. And if you look in that last column, every grade but 5 has exceeded the national average, but you'll also see several grade levels where over 60% of students exceeded the national average. And in grade 2, we're almost at 69%. And overall, across grades, 59%. And this is by far the most positive movement we've seen in the administration of MAP. Now, there's a lot of data on this table, but we wanted to share the subgroup data, district-wide subgroup across grades 2 through 8, with the key point being that we're not just seeing specific, isolated subgroups making progress. In general, almost all of our subgroups have made progress this year. So you have all of your fall data, the first administration, the number tested, the median national percentile, the percent of students in the top 2 quintiles.
Dr. Jenkins, can you say that one more time? I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
We're seeing growth for almost all of our subgroups across the board. And I was told earlier not to shout, so I'm trying to keep the voice. And so you see when you look at our winter data that you see red for our two smallest subgroups, Hawaiian Pacific Islander and Native American. Again, we're talking about less than 50 students in those subgroups have some mixed results, even though the majority of their students are meeting their growth projections. Our students with disabilities are the one area in the far right that did not hit over half of their students meeting projections, but they were just slightly below that at 47%. So we're seeing positive movement across subgroups. And in mathematics, all of our subgroups exceeded 50% of students hitting targets. All of them exceeded the 50th percentile in terms of growth, including students with disabilities, including our English learners and our economically disadvantaged. Now, there's a lot of good news when you look at the subgroup data. The one challenge we have is, again, the achievement gaps continue to be significant, and we know that. The good news is all boats are rising, all subgroups are moving in the right direction here. We've got to accelerate the growth for the most disadvantaged subgroups. But we have not seen these patterns in terms of our subgroup data with previous MAP assessments. And finally, looking at quadrant data, I said that these results are not isolated to any particular part of the county. And this shows our median national percentile and the percent of students in the top 2 quintiles on the most recent assessment. But then it shows the growth data, the median growth national percentile. All of these are at the 50th percentile or higher. The Northwest quadrant, we have separated showing all schools in the Northwest quadrant first, and then the Northwest with the asterisk is where we've removed the academic magnet schools. We've been asked to report that both ways in the past. And you see the growth national percentile, the percent of students meeting projections. All of the quadrants had over half their population meeting that target. And for some context, the percent of students that were tested within those quadrants that are economically disadvantaged, because we know these quadrants look different. Historically, we've seen a negative relationship between economic disadvantage and one-time measures of achievement. We've seen that locally, we've seen that statewide, we've seen that nationally. And there is some relationship between the median national percentile for achievement and economic disadvantage. But historically, there's not much of a relationship between the economic disadvantage and growth. And but I will say the Southwest quadrant does have the highest achievement and the highest growth measures. But again, all of the quadrants are exceeding the national average in terms of percent of students meeting those projections. That's reading. And finally, mathematics. Once again, everybody in the green. And we see over half of our students in all quadrants exceeding those projections. Once again, the Southwest quadrant leads the way for achievement and growth. Given the correlations that we saw with 10 Ready and MAP last year, this bodes well in terms of the trends we hope to see with 10 Ready. We also anticipate that the growth projections we're seeing will be good predictors of value-added performance. Of course, we will be following up when we get that data to make sure those gains are sustained, but they're encouraging as we go into testing season. So with that, I will take questions.
Just one quick comment before we go to questions, if I may say, and I just simply would say, I think our teachers deserve a round of applause. They're not here, but we need to. Over the course of the past year, I mean, we've added new curriculum and new scope and sequences. I mean, we've raised the level of expectation, and whenever you raise expectations and you have great teachers who are committed, as the teachers in Metro Nashville Public Schools are, and are working hard, I mean, you're going to get better outcomes. It just takes time to sink in and catch on. And I anticipate, as we continue to implement curriculum, make sure our kids have high-level curriculum. I mean, we keep talking about we'll never remediate ourselves into excellence, and in fact, we've spent the past 18 months actually shifting that and making sure we have some of the highest standards in the country here in Tennessee, and now we're working to make sure that teachers can teach to those standards, and we're asking how can we support and trying to provide the supports as we go through to do that. So again, I really commend our teachers for their willingness to work hard, execute, and I anticipate we're going to continue to get growth at a more accelerated rate as people begin to get comfortable and as we get them more of the resources that they need.
Dr. Joseph, in looking at the audience, I would say we have a lot of our great teachers here tonight.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, and congratulations. I mean, this is a great positive night to hear this information, and we hope it does become a trend. So my question is, especially for the middle grades, will the RIT scores be used to help do ACT predictors?
Yes, that is another feature that MAP assessment provides, our predictions to the ACT. We also have data from the state with 10 Ready and students' prior history that also predicts to the ACT. So we will be sharing all of that data with our schools. In this year was the first time we had any kind of predictive data to 10 Ready. We generated that ourselves. Going forward, NWEA will be pulling all of the districts in Tennessee that use the assessment to do predictions to 10 Ready, so that after each assessment next year, we'll have that data. But the ACT prediction information will be available to those middle schools.
And that goes home to parents?
We're sending reports home that have the history of all of the MAP assessments after each assessment. I'll have to see if the ACT predictors are part of that. I don't know that has been the case historically, but we can see if we can get that included in those reports.
And I would love to see what some of those RIT scores are. You know, if we can have, average per grade.
I do have those calculated. We'll be happy to share that. As you saw, there's a lot of data. We focused on the percentiles, but I can send that out tomorrow to you, the average RIT scores.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Ms. Berry.
Thank you, Paul. The quintiles are nationally normed. Is that correct?
Right. Those are based on the national percentiles.
And so are the cut scores determined nationally, or are they determined locally?
They are. So any child between the first and 20th national percentile is put in quintile 1. A 21 to 40 would be quintile 2. So that they're broken up into blocks of 20s.
Great. And it seems like I had another question. So you would call this a dramatic increase, right? I know when we had 2 percentage points, you said that was when we had a 2% drop earlier a few months ago.
I don't use the word dramatic a lot, but I would say it's definitely very significant and very impressive. It's the best data we've seen in terms of growth data. I'm always a little cautious until we see it extended forward with other assessments, but this is a very well-validated assessment given to 8 million students across the country. The norms are strong, so we feel real good about what we're seeing. I can also say that we've done a lot of professional development with curriculum and instruction teams from each school that meet, and we've gotten very positive feedback about the instructional value of these assessments and helping to identify where students are. And, we always know that there are challenges with the number of assessments that go on, but we feel that this one does provide some useful information for teachers. So when Dr. Joseph talks about building on the momentum, I think we're only going to get better in the use of this data.
Will this be the last time the map is administered this year, or will there be one more
It's
administration?
the last district-wide administration. It will be open in May for schools that wish to get an end-of-year measure, particularly since 10 Ready won't be back at the end of the year. And we have a few schools that have some grant evaluation requirements that are required to gather data. My one caution about the May assessment, like we saw last year, after 10 Ready, we know that kids are pretty worn out. So we don't know how useful that data will be in terms of looking at trends, but we will have that option for schools.
And when do we expect 10 Ready data to be back for?
Unfortunately, the preliminary data we get won't be, for grades 3 through 8, won't be back until early June. And when I say preliminary, that's just raw scale scores. It'll probably be July before we have any kind of useful information. And that's more like the reporting we were seeing a few years ago prior to the change in vendors and change in standards. We're keeping our fingers crossed, but we should at least have the data back over the summer so that we can have it into schools before school starts.
Thank you.
I have just one question. Considering the challenges that we are seeing with the 5th grade scores, is there something that we can do differently just for that one particular grade to kind of massage that a little bit?
When you say massage that, I'll just say that that's a broader question than a Paul Changas question, but I can tell you we're looking at the data. And that's district-wide data. We have schools that are doing well, relatively well at the 5th grade. If you look at the school level data by grades, you'll see great variation in terms of performance. One of the things we did at a recent administrator and supervisor meeting was have some principals and teachers who were getting outstanding results to share some of those practices. And that's the thing I think we can continue to build on, the sharing of those practices. We know that that's a grade level where students are coming into our buildings. We've got to make sure we do a good job of identifying what those students' strengths and needs are early in that school year.
Thank you, Dr. Changas.
Thank you, Dr. Changas. Thank you so much. And our last update tonight is regarding our Community Eligibility Program. So the Community Eligibility Program is a program that allows us to provide universal free meals throughout the district for the past 4 years. It's a 4-year program, and now it is time to renew. The Community Eligibility Program's eligibility for the entire school district is determined by direct certification. That is, the percentage of students who are certified to receive federal benefits. It requires that at least 60% of our enrollment be certified. 4 years ago, our enrollment was just over the threshold, and the percentage has been decreasing each year until now we are at about 47%. There are several reasons for this decline. There continues to be an issue with the data we receive from the state and matching the students, and we have concerns that external factors may be preventing families from registering for benefits. Nevertheless, Metro Nashville Public School no longer qualifies for the district-wide program. We have some options, and at the microphone is our Executive Officer for Operations, Ken Starks, with Spencer, who is in charge of nutrition, and they will be giving you the presentation and talking about how we can move forward.
Thank you, Dr. Joseph. He just stole a little bit of my thunder, but to rehash very quickly in terms of what the program is. Again, Community Eligibility is the program that allows us to feed all of our students free lunch. It's a 4-year program that we started in 2014-15 and have maintained it every year since then. And it does rely on the direct certification to determine what our reimbursement rate is. I'm sure you all remember the forms that families used to fill out to determine whether or not they are eligible. those forms, and that percentage that you get from those forms is irrelevant in this calculation. It is only determined based on direct certification. Those families that are receiving SNAP, TANF, those types of benefits. Once we have that ratio, they multiply that ratio times a multiplier of 1.6 to determine what our reimbursement is. So if our direct certification ratio is 60%, our reimbursement is 96%. There's a couple of things that impact that direct certification ratio. If the economy is doing well, things are improving, the direct certification rate will tend to go down. If the economy is declining, the converse is that direct certification rate will tend to go up. There can be underlying programming changes. The easier those underlying programs, SNAP and TANF, are to access, again, it'll cause the direct certification rate to go up. If those programs are more difficult to access, there are various requirements, or the income levels change, or work requirements, those types of things that make it more difficult, our direct certification rate will go down. As Dr. Joseph touched on, the matching is a real concern. The better the matching, again, the direct certification rate goes up. The worse the matching, the direct certification rate tends to go down. So let me just touch on this matching piece a little bit so that you have an idea of what all is involved in that. Every month we get a giant file from the state that lists essentially every student in the state that is receiving one of the eligible programs, and every other district in the state gets that same list. We then have to go through that list and match our kids to the ones in that list. We've got to match name, address. I believe we're allowed to use birthday, but we have to match all of these components. If any of those components don't match, then we're not allowed to count that student towards our reimbursement rate. So part of with the mobility issues that we face, it is not uncommon for a student to have been their family to initially receive their public assistance at another address. We update our addresses fairly regularly, but the state's databases tend to lag significantly. It's not uncommon for a student, say, their family to have been granted SNAP benefits to live in, say, Shelby County. They've relocated to Nashville. We know that they're here, but because we can't match name and address, we can't count that student towards our ratio. The other piece that is a growing issue for us is, up until several years ago, we were allowed to request Social Security numbers from families when they registered. That gave us a very concrete match point. Everybody only has one Social Security number in both databases. We're no longer allowed to do that. So we still have the ones that we had before, but as more and more students enroll, and without that number, it makes that matching process that much more difficult. Spelling changes or spelling differences in the different databases can cause a problem. A typical one, the first name Muhammad can be spelled starting M-O or M-U. I think I've seen some MAs. There's lots of variations of that kind of spelling difference in a different database, or a hyphenated name that gets picked up in one and not in another. Those kind of things are what keep us from matching students. There is no single state unifying number. If the student ID, the state student ID number was to be used in the other databases where they're providing it for the state benefit list, that would make matching much simpler, but that does not happen on the state end, so the database that we get to try to match to doesn't have that. So again, all of these are challenges that push the number down. So excuse me, as Dr. Joseph mentioned, our direct certification rate has been trending downward. So if you look on this graph, you'll see the April 1st, 2014, that was the data that was used when we initially started the program. The first year of the program was the 14-15 school year. So we started at a direct certification rate at 61.39. Those first 2 years, it was pretty consistent. In April of 16, it dropped down to 54, almost 55%. April of 17, it was in the 50, right about 53. And this current April, we don't have the numbers yet, but we're projecting that is going to be right about 47%. So it's been a pretty dramatic drop over these past 4 years. The one saving grace that I will mention is with the CEP program, we're able to hold that high number through the 4-year program, so our reimbursement rate has been held at that initial rate. So what do those percentages really mean? So if you took that 61% direct certification number that we had on April 1st of 2014, that translated to a 98.2 reimbursement rate, and that's what we've been reimbursed at for the whole 4 years. Looking at this projection for April 1st, coming up here in a couple weeks, and translating that 47%, that would put our reimbursement rate at about 75.5%. That's a 22.7% reduction in the reimbursement per meal. The reimbursement rate is currently $3.31 per meal, so that means our reimbursement would drop by about 75 cents per meal. And if you do all the math across the number of meals we have, that's about $7.7 million a year that our reimbursement would drop if we were to try to maintain CEP across the district. That's a lot of money. Our plan for 18-19 is as follows. First, there are some other programs available to us that will allow us to feed all students free breakfast, all students at all schools every day. So we think that's a positive piece. On the community eligibility, if we adjust the way we look at it and move to a blended program, all schools with a 95% or higher reimbursement rate, which as it sits, we're thinking it's going to be about 74 schools. It could move a little bit one way or the other depending on how these last round of numbers come in, would maintain the community eligibility as it sits today. That means all students would eat free lunch in those buildings. For the remaining buildings, we would move back to the traditional model that we used prior to 14-15. All families would fill out the form. We're working on our point-of-sale system vendor has an electronic-based app that we hope will smooth that process for families and make it a little bit easier for them to complete that application. Any families that qualify will receive free or reduced price lunch if they meet those income requirements. So the converse to that is those that don't meet the requirements would have to pay for lunch. And then the other thing, we have the ability every year, every April, to revisit what we're doing with the program for the subsequent school year. And if the numbers would change back the other way, next April we could be talking about adding more schools back into the CEP program if the numbers work. So with that, I've thrown a lot at you, but Mr. Taylor and I are here ready to take your questions.
Yes.
Thank you. So you said you have an alternative funding source for the universal breakfast, or how are you?
It's a slightly different program, and the funding mechanism from USDA and through the state is a little bit more advantageous that allows us to do that.
It's more of a provisional program, and we can use data depending. There are 2 or 3 ways you can do it. You can go back and use previous data from the last time that you served free and reduced using the application system to come up with your reimbursement percentage. So whatever our reimbursement percentage was last when we did the application process, we can use that data to be reimbursed at that rate for the breakfast meal, enabling us to provide universal breakfast across the district.
Do you know what the participation rate has been for our non-CEP families?
Well, everybody is, as it stands now, currently everybody's in the program. So
Right.
we don't have a way to determine who's CEP and who's not.
Who's been receiving the meals?
Right.
Okay.
We do expect there to be probably an 18% decline in participation as we move to a system in those buildings that are non-CEP.
Have we thought about our students who are EL, our EL population, and how to reach those families?
Yeah, the outreach piece is significant, not just EL families, but all families. So we've been working with the communications folks to develop both communications pieces for this spring, letting people know that these changes are coming and so that they can start to prepare. And then also in the summer and fall when we come back, there will be an extensive effort to get as many applications and to beat the bushes as much as we can to get every last child that qualifies into the program and getting free lunch. We really want as many kids as we can get on that program as we can.
Well, we would hate for a language barrier to be a barrier to access for meals.
Not monetary either. So if we could get a benefactor for $7.7 million
Right.
somewhere out there in the community, we could feed them all.
Anybody else have any questions or comments? Thank you very much for your
Thank you.
report. We will move on to the board chair report, and I do have one tonight. Just wanted to take a moment to talk about the budget process that we are currently in. I'd like to take this opportunity to remind my colleagues that we are most effective when we speak our voices through the voting process, which we haven't done yet. An important and maybe the most important part to our job as school board members is the approval of our annual operating budget. We have some really smart people who help us put together this budget based upon what we have vocalized as our priorities and what we have communicated to Dr. Joseph as our strategic framework. I know that there has been a sense of uneasiness among some of us, including me, because of the fact that we are facing some financial challenges with this budget. That's why I think it's important to be mindful, calm, and understanding of this process. If we act accordingly, I think we can get a budget that reflects our values, and it's important that we get this process right. I want to thank everybody at Central Office, Chris and his team, who have spent countless hours working and reworking, and will continue to do that in this important document. I also want to thank my colleagues on the board, Ms. Hunter and Ms. Pierce, who are leading this charge. Your efforts have not gone unnoticed, and I appreciate you all very much. Thank you. That concludes my board chair report. We have any announcements? We want to start with Ms. Buggs.
Well, I'm back.
Yay!
And for those of you that have not been able to meet Chris II, he is here. He's healthy. He's beautiful, and we're so happy. Thank you to my colleagues. Thank you to community members. We really do appreciate all your thoughts and prayers over the past few months. But I'm really excited. The Mayor's Art Show will be highlighting many of the schools in my district: Pearl Cone, Hattie Cotton, Glenn. I mean, there are a number of other schools throughout the district. So please come out. I believe it starts this Thursday, March 29th, and then again on April 12th. So please head to the Frisk Center to see the Mayor's Art Show. Thank you.
Ms. Pierce?
That was the same announcement. It's from 5 to 7. No, and the remarks at 6 o'clock down at the Frisk. So come out. They have two different nights. So Antioch, Cane Ridge, Glencliff, Hillsborough, Hunters Lane, Pearl Cone, and Stratford clusters will be this Thursday.
We held 2 community meetings in the Southeast cluster this past week. We're going to follow up with some of those because we didn't have the best attendance, so please stay tuned. Thank you.
There are 4 blue ribbon teachers in my district. Martha Schaefer and Jared Amato from Maplewood High School, and Sarah Hoyle and Carol Chaparro from Hunters Lane.
And so we just know that that blue ribbon reception was rescheduled till April 30th.
Right.
And so it's from 5:30 to 7.
I would encourage my colleagues to be in attendance as well. And I don't have any announcements. I already did mine. So before we dismiss, the board will be taking a small break in the back, and we will resume. And if you haven't signed up yet, we will hurry over there and do it, because we're going to close the bidding process real soon. So go ahead and sign up. We'll line up in groups of 10, and you'll have 2 minutes to express your thoughts on the public hearing around the budget. Thank you. Ms. Buggs.
Be there no further business. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.